Okay, so today I want to show you how to use my new Calyx mould, which is originally made, I originally made this for the tops of a little red pepper or green pepper, but I found out that it was extremely useful for making flower tops. So it's incredibly simple to use. What you do is you simply take a little bit of green clay, and the clay has to be soft enough to go into the mould, but not so sticky that it gets all over the place. It has to come back out again. And as you can see, what I've done is I've rolled a little point, and inside this mould is a small hole that you can push the point into. And what it'll do is it'll leave a stalk, a stem on your flower. So that goes in there. I'll make it a bit thinner so it can go deeper. As deeply as you can get it. And then I push it into the mould with my fingernail, and just alter it a little bit with a craft tool so that the clay goes into the star-shaped indentations in the mould, but not too much into the flower part, because this is from a real flower and it has the little petals, and all I want is that star-shaped calyx as the back of my flower. So that's in there. And what I need now, I think we'll make a daisy first. So what I need now is some white clay. I'll use Cernit for this because it's a flexible clay. And that means that even for very delicate things, the clay doesn't break. And I need a clay that doesn't break very easily because I carry all my miniatures around all over the place on aeroplanes, etc. What I'm doing here is I'm preparing a strip of the white clay. And I'm pressing that down on my board. Now the size of your petals is in direct proportion to the size of this strip. So here I'll make a fairly large daisy because I want you to be able to see it. So this is a bit difficult because I'm using white on white, so you might not see it very easily, but I want to show you this motion of how to cut the petals. And it's cut, pull away and push back. It's easier on a ceramic towel than it is on this plastic surface that I'm using, but I have to use this surface because it's matte. So I'll do it again. So you cut it at that angle, pull it away and push it back at that angle, and that releases the petal, which you can then pick up with your craft tool and just pop onto the mould. So all you have to do is dab your craft tool onto the clay and that picks it up, and then you pop it straight onto the mould. You've got to be careful not to press too hard as you put this on the mould, because what can happen is that it pulls it straight back out again, and I don't want that until I've finished. Let's put some more petals on this. Another 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so this is quite a large daisy shape. Oh, that's trying to come out. Push that in, but gently. Oh. Right, now I just need a little yellow centre. And you don't need much. So I'm just making the very smallest little ball of yellow. Even smaller, I think. And popping it into the centre. If you want to texture it, you can. But it's so small that it can be quite subtle. Okay, so to take the little calyx and the flower out of the mould, you just turn the mould upside down slightly and squeeze on these triangular bits, and that helps to release it from the mould, and it starts to come away. If your clay's a bit sticky, it doesn't come away as easily as this, but I've got this to just the right stickiness. Then you'll see that the back of this is a little bit fat and a little bit irregular, and all you do then is twizzle that between your fingers, and then that's ready to bake like that. Oops. I'll make sure you get a close-up of that. Okay, I'm going to make a second flower based on the same principles as the daisy. And in this case, I'm going to make a multicolored dahlia. The same simple method of making the petals. As you can see, I'm pushing this hard into the mould with my fingernail. Getting this consistency just right for the calyx is quite tricky. As you can see, I've got it so that it's coming out of the mould really easily, but unfortunately it wants to come out when I don't want it to. If you get it a bit stickier, it'll stay in the mould better, but then it's a little bit more difficult to get it out. Okay, so there's the filled mould, and I've mixed two pinkish colours. I think they're from a Fimo lavender and a Fimo pink in the Fimo soft range, which I don't normally use, but it was cheap at the craft shop, so that's the darker one, yeah. So you start from the outside and work inwards, so it's exactly the opposite of how you would work with cold porcelain, etc., without a mould. When you're working with the calyx mould, you work from the outside inwards. Let me show you what I mean. You put the outside petals on before you put the inner petals. Okay, we'll cut a few more of these. That one's not releasing. There we go. So this is the darker colour, and I'll put the outside petals on. The more delicate you make these petals, the more effective it is. So cut them really thin if you can. And the first layer them on really delicately. Then as you come to the second layer, I think that's a bit thick, that one. As you come to the second layer, you can press them down a little bit more, because as you press them, the petals start to stick up slightly. I'm going to cut some more, a little thinner. Okay. Okay, so I've done a layer of the darker petals, and now I want to give it a little bit of three-dimensionality, and in fact this type of dahlia does have lighter petals in the middle. So another little roll, pressed down. Cut several petals. These are only very slightly different shade of pink, but I've done some that I can show you in close-up that are a stronger difference. Just press those in, and as you press them in, the petals lift, and so it makes them more three-dimensional. Okay, and once again, you can just squeeze those out of the mould. I've squashed that one slightly, and twizzle it. So that's how to make the simplest form of petals. Now I think you want to do some cut petals. And when you're doing these, I used to try rolling out the clay extremely thinly, but I find with Cernit you don't really have to condition the clay, so you can cut it straight from the pack, which is fantastic. And you can get it as thin as you want. So you can cut a really thin slice from the clay, whoop, and use it straight away. I think you're going to have trouble seeing white, so I'll do it in a different colour. It's a bit brash, but I'll show you it in yellow. So you can just cut very thin slices off the clay and go straight from there. Let me use a little blossom cutter. And I'll use one of my smaller Calyx moulds. If you want a smaller version, please ask me. Eventually I'll have them in several sizes. At the moment the smaller ones are by request only. I'll pop that small one in there. Just getting rid of the excess clay. You don't have to be too perfect about how these Calyx come out, because they are so very tiny. Then you can take the tiny flower and pop it on the Calyx. I'm not happy really with that one because it's a bit too rough on the back, but I just wanted to show you how easy it was to put those, to make really, really tiny flowers. Okay, and a slightly bigger one. These Kemper cutters come in several different sizes. And I think this one comes in a set that's supposed to make some kind of little animal. So that's a better size, I think. With the smaller smaller moulds, it's not quite so easy to get the Calyx shape. This one's great for chili peppers as well, this tiny one. And if you want a different colour on your flower, just take a little, oops, let's see what colour shall I use. Use a little bit of the orange colour. use a little bit of craft powder and a brush. In this case, I'll put some in the middle. Very simple. Once again, just twizzle that. With this being a smaller calyx, it's a little bit more difficult to get it out. And that one's come out without the whole of its stem, which sometimes happens. If you're trying to get rid of the clay out of the stem, just use a soft ended tool. Don't use a spiky, scratchy tool. And that'll just bring the rest of the clay out. Or you can just work straight in on top of it again. Okay, so I'll make you something else. Just need to clean that powder away. So, a simple rose then. I'm back on the slightly bigger cutter. Sorry, when I say cutter, I mean mould, of course. Try again. This one really is popping out easily. That's not usually my problem. My problem is usually them staying in. Better. So just tidying up the star shape a bit. Okay, so once again for this type of flower you do need to use a very fine cut of clay. So I'll use this pink again and slice. And if you're making a very large rambling rose type rose, you can actually cut the clay straight from your clay. You can cut a petal shape like this and work with that. However, you can also use the Kemper cutters to make little rose shapes. Now I've forgotten to bring my piece of foam, so I'll just do this on my finger just to shape this rose petal a little bit. I'm using my finger so that it's not absolutely flat. That one's got some green on it. Again, you work from the outside and add the petals onto the outside instead of working from the centre. Take the pointed end of the petal and pop that on the calyx. I learnt this little technique of smoothing off the petals from Diane Harfield, actually. in the days when I didn't touch flowers. So carry on adding petals from the outside and work slowly inwards. Turn over. That one's gone on upside down, but never mind. So I'm starting to put the inner petals on now. I have to be very careful because the mould wants to release itself and I don't want it to come out yet. And I've cut some of the lighter colour as well, and they're going in and being pressed down as they go in. It's coming out. As you can see, I'm not having to touch the flower at all with my fingers. Okay, so now I need to persuade those centre ones to start to come inwards and wrap round each other a little bit. And if you want, you can put some centre in. Put a little bit of yellow in the centre just to give it a little realism, but you'll hardly see that as you wrap the petals of the rose. So this is like a rambling rose. It's not too curled up. It's more open. And once again, it's just squeeze it until it falls out. If yours doesn't fall out that easily, it's because your clay's a bit sticky. But you'll have less problem with it jumping out of the mould if your clay's more sticky. So it swings and roundabouts really. You win on the staying stuck in the mould side. And you can actually make closed up roses as well. I've got some here that are more closed. And I've also made some tiny little violets using the same method with the very small calyx.